In my last video, I talked a little bit about how my philosophy in teaching Shakespeare changed after I had an opportunity to go to a great workshop. And I've been, ever since, trying to treat the plays of Shakespeare more as scripts for actors than books we need to study and pick apart. And yes, we do tests, they write an essay, but that's not all we do. So when you talk about looking at it like an actor, it's looking for clues in the text that help the actor know what to do next. And a good way of having them think about that is also looking at the reactions that between characters. So for example, there's a scene in Romeo and Juliet. So Act 1, Scene 5, the masquerade ball scene, where Tybalt, who is Juliet's fiery cousin, spots Romeo, or hears Romeo's voice. He's in a mask and recognizes him at the party. And so he calls for his rapier, which is a sword, and he wants to go fight him. And then Lord Capulet is like, "What's wrong with you? Why do you storm so?" And that's a moment where, rather than just trying to weed through Tybalt's little speech there and just pick apart, okay, what is he saying? One student doesn't have to be the one to announce to the class, "I think he's mad that Romeo's there." And then that just takes out the engagement for everyone else in the room once the first person has answered the question. So you can do your traditional stuff with just wait time, have them write down the answer, that sort of thing. But for a drama unit, for something that's as passionate as that moment, what I love to do is pull students up on their feet in pairs. And I might say, okay, student A, you're Tybalt. Student B, you are Lord Capulet. And so I want you to talk it out together. I'll tell you, he sees Romeo. How does he feel? And how does Lord Capulet react to that? And I want you to just show me that with your body language. You don't have to talk and you don't have to move, but your posture and your facial expression, your hand gestures should reveal that. And so by giving them a chance to pull together just the physical expression of that scene, when you have everyone in the class doing that in pairs, they're all engaged. They're all looking at the text and reading it and rereading it to figure it out. And then they're all making choices as actors. How do I present that I'm angry and I want to fight him? So they might be doing a pointing gesture or a raised fist or something like that. And then Lord Capulet, who is confused at why Tybalt is suddenly angry, might be like, "What are you doing?" gesture. And so that activity, by the way, is just called tableau. So I think it comes from tableau vivant, living pictures. But you don't have to do a full formal one with props and everything. Just getting them to freeze frame on show me what these characters look like in this moment, at any moment that's difficult or hard to understand. First of all, it's fun. It gets them out of their seats if they've been sitting there slowly reading through the scene. It gives them a chance to move around as they're figuring it out. It's funny and they're making silly faces at each other, but it's also so memorable. It's like the body remembers maybe what the brain doesn't. So later on in Act 2, I think it is, Tybalt sends a challenge to Romeo. And that explanation, because Mercutio hears the challenge and reads it, or Benvolio does, it's confusing. But if you can ask students, all right, why has Tybalt sent a challenge to Romeo? And they remember, oh, I was Tybalt. I was angry at Romeo. I was making that face. I was raising my fist at Romeo. They're going to recall that so much faster than if just one kid had said, "Oh, Tybalt's mad at Romeo," and then you moved on. So just little things like that at different moments take less than 5 minutes, and there's so much reward there. Another thing that I have students do is prompt books. So I think I'm going to pull together the materials for this and find a way to share those with you, probably through my TPT store. But prompt books are what directors use. They have a binder with the script, and it's full of notes about how they're blocking the scene, who fight choreography notes, costume notes, entrances, exits. But most importantly, the script is annotated for how the characters are delivering the lines, where they're pausing, those sorts of things, lighting cues, all of that. So what I have students do is they take a key scene. So in Romeo and Juliet, I pick the balcony scene. In Macbeth, I pick the scene where Macbeth has murdered King Duncan and then coming back out of the room to Lady Macbeth. And so I give them a copy of the script with wide margins on the left and right hand side. And then we go through, as we read this thing together, we paraphrase it in one color pen on the left. But then on the right hand side, they have to make notes about what would the set look like, and they draw it. What would their costumes look like, and they draw it. And then they make tons of annotations about how are the characters saying the lines? Where are they pausing? What emotions are they using? What's the subtext? What are they really saying in those lines? And they just annotate the heck out of it. And it makes these really beautiful, rich illustrated, annotated copies of the script. And even if they're just making a lot of notes and not a lot of pictures, it's still just such a deeply engaging exercise for them to think like they are acting it for the stage or for a movie, if that's more accessible to them. So if I find some examples of those back in my files, I will share some copies of that too. But then what I have them do often for an end of play project is I let them work in groups to pick a scene besides our prompt book we did as a class, and put together a prompt book as a group for that scene and then perform it. So if you have a stage in your school and you can borrow that, all the better. If not, you can do it at the front of the classroom. But they put together real, very simple costumes and simple props, and then they perform the scene according to their notes. And that's always been a memorable exercise as well, to perform an act. And their engagement is through the roof, and it's the most fun unit you'll do all year. And it enhances their learning, even in the original language, in a way that makes things just more accessible and more worthwhile for students. All right, so the last video I think I'm going to do on Shakespeare, I'm going to talk about how I approach the language, because that's the thing I think a lot of teachers and students get hung up on: these, those, thys, those little words. And I'll talk to you about a couple of approaches I use for making the language of the play accessible to all students. And no, it's not just using the copy of No Fear Shakespeare for the whole play. Not that, something else. All right, make sure you're subscribed so you catch that in the next video.